Hey listeners, we're nearing the end of our 15th anniversary fundraising campaign, and we need your help to meet our goal. This campaign offers you a chance to win a unique food and music experience in one of the most exciting cities in America. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and you'll be entered to win dinner for two and 2 tickets to a concert in one of 8 amazing cities: New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Ardmore, Pennsylvania, and Asheville. All donations support our work educating food system storytellers. And when you donate, you can choose one of those cities and you'll be entered to win dinner and 2 tickets to a show. So help us reach our goal and enter to win dinner and a show in the city of your choice. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
Hi, this is Sam Ben-Ruby, the Grape Nation and Heritage Radio, once again at the Charleston Wine and Food Festival, broadcasting live from the Culinary Village. I had the opportunity to sit down with some great guests over the weekend, and I'd like to bring you this special interview with Tahiirah Habibi. But first, for the second year in a row, the Grape Nation has been nominated as a finalist with the Taste Awards, often called the Oscars of Food, Fashion, and Lifestyle Media. They are the premier broadcast award show celebrating the year's best achievements on radio and in podcasts, among others. The Grape Nation is a finalist in the Best Drink or Beverage program and for a Viewer's Choice Award for Best Food and Drink Radio Broadcast. You can vote for the Grape Nation in the Viewer's Choice Awards by going to tasteawards.com. When you get to the page, scroll down to Viewer's Choice, tap the Vote Here box, fill in your name and email, go to number 6 and check the Grape Nation box, and then finally scroll down to the bottom and hit the Done button. Voting ends March 11th, so please vote now, and thank you for that. Welcome to Heritage Radio Network on tour at Charleston Wine and Food 2022. I'm Sam Ben-Ruby from the Grape Nation, and today we are broadcasting live from the heart of the Culinary Village. This episode is made possible thanks to the support of Hickory Nut Group, builders of community agriculture since 1916. All right, I want to welcome our guest today. Our guest today is Tahiirah Habibi. Tahiirah is a sommelier. She's an entrepreneur. I would say she's an activist. She is founder of the Hugh Society, co-founder of the Roots Fund, and founder of the Council of Resources Group. And she also makes some pretty amazing jewelry, which hopefully we can get to, right? All right, so let's get started. Let's give people a little context about who you are.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Philly.
Yep.
You attended Penn State.
Yep.
Came back to Philly to work and study. You actually studied wine,
Yep.
right? And then you left to work in Miami. So I'm curious about a few things. You come back to Philly. What's the motivation to study wine? How does that interest come up? And then bring me to why you leave and go to Miami.
So, when I decided to study wine, it was a whim. It was
It was a whim.
when I was in college, I was in a lot of leadership positions, and I used to always have to be in the room with like executives, like the president, the vice provost, that kind of thing. And so this was years ago when the wine wasn't as popping as it is now.
Right.
And I've always had this self-awareness where I never want to embarrass myself, and I've always been aware that anything that I do was representation of my entire community.
Agree.
And so it wasn't a common thing for me to be in these positions, or somebody, black person to be in these positions, and I just didn't want to.
Black woman.
Right. And so I was like, okay, I see how this wine thing is going. This wine doesn't taste that great, but I noticed how people respect you when you can handle yourself with it. And so that was my first interest.
So when you say handle, it's having the knowledge makes you handle the topic in the room better, right?
Right? At least faking it.
Right.
Like
well,
not grimacing, not being like, oh my God, this is nasty or this isn't sweet or blah, blah, blah. And so after that, I graduated. I moved back to Philly. I started working, and I was homeless for a little while. And then I started working in this restaurant, the Palomar in Philly had just opened, and they were offering free wine classes. And I would sneak into like the bartender tastings and whatever. And they offered the classes to anybody. And so I said, I don't have no money. So, but I can take these classes though. And so they paid for my wine classes at the Wine School of Philadelphia. I got to an advanced level. I realized I was really good. I had taken a trip to Europe. I spent a month in Europe by myself. And that's when I decided.
Was the motivation of the Europe trip wrapped around an interest in wine, or you were just...
No, it was wine. It was visiting
focused.
A friend. It was, and so, but it's different over there, right? Like wine in Europe is very different than wine in the U.S. And that is what motivated me.
So when you say that,
on.
What's like the most noticeable thing?
It's food.
They embrace it differently.
People start their kids drinking wine with meals at 12. Very early age, and they don't become alcoholics. It's not this fear. It's not
cultural,
it's
not
literal,
like getting a buzz.
Right. It's literal food. And that's when I learned that wine was food. They don't teach you that, so much here.
That's a good point.
And I came back, and I was more motivated than ever. And after I finished my last advanced class, I said, you know what? I'm going to move, because Philadelphia, I did everything I could here. Philly is not a wine place.
No.
So I'm either going to go to Miami or I'm going to go to California. I flipped a coin.
Now that
landed on Miami.
That was your preference. You want to be in Miami, you want to be in California, and you scouted them as decent wine places to drop in, settle.
And I wanted to be somewhere warm.
Okay.
So let's say that too.
So you go to Miami, hit the ground running, right?
I did. I didn't even have an apartment when I moved there. I literally picked up and moved 2 weeks later. No apartment, no nothing. I had to work as a cocktail server at the Kimpton for a few months while I was studying to take my CMS test, the quartermasters. And after that, I got hired at the St. Regis. I opened the St. Regis, and then it's just
Val Harbor?
Yep.
That was a hot spot, right?
That was a pretty incredible start.
How long were you there?
2.5 years, 3 years, something like that.
Then you left there, stayed in Miami.
I went to Michael's Genuine. I was a manager and somm there. I left there. I became the wine director at another place. And it just kept escalating, but I didn't see anybody look like me. So I was really lonely, like really lonely.
So don't spend a lot of time, but at some point you're like, I'm done in Miami. You're done because you did what you wanted to. Where'd you go?
Atlanta, where I am now.
Okay. So you've been in Atlanta how long?
Didn't want to have a baby there. I felt like I wanted to be more around my culture. I wanted to expand what I was doing. So I had an organization called Sipping Socials, which I started in Miami.
You started, right.
Right. And
I
was doing
when you started Sipping Social, what was the idea, the concept?
It was to create wine events and education through the Black lens to get more of us into the space, right? Because one thing I know is that when we see ourselves, we can be engaged. We don't see ourselves, we don't feel like it's for us, we move along, right? And so I started Sipping Socials. I did a wine and reggae festival. 3,000 people showed up.
Wow.
More than I had capacity for.
Right.
I got drugged through the ringer. It's terrible.
You're
but
lucky
the event
you're
was
alive,
amazing.
right?
No, they tore me to shreds. And then I ended up, I wanted to expand it. I saw that it worked, though, right? I was
you
like,
just had to get everything right.
And I was like, I'm going to expand this. I can do this across the country. And so I changed it from Sipping Socials to the Hue Society with the intent of creating like this umbrella organization. Or
Wait, you pronounce it Hui?
Huh?
What do you call it?
The Hue Society.
Oh, Hue. I thought you said Hui.
No, the Hue Society.
All right, so before we get into that, I want to delve into some, kind of interesting, tough issues, all right?
Okay.
And I think you set me up for this.
I did. CMS.
So when I sit with you and I know you, it hasn't been that long that you've been in wine. You know, it's not like you're this older woman with 30 years. I mean, you've done a lot,
Yeah, about
in a
12
short
years.
period of
It's
time.
not too much, yeah.
And I think you and I would agree that and we're talking about our industry, the wine industry.
yeah.
I mean, I do a
Yeah.
podcast, you're in the industry. It's very white,
Yep.
and there's definitely an air of elitism, colonialism,
Yeah.
and all of that. There had to be a point, and you may have mentioned it, but when did you realize this is effed up?
So when I came in, it's a little different than now. When I came in, everything was CMS. That is
we're going to get to that
right.
too.
But everything, you weren't considered a SOM unless you were CMS certified.
CMS was a huge part
It
of
was
being
a huge
a wine
part
person.
of, right. It was
Okay.
the only part, right?
And CMS is the
they
Court of
dominated.
Master Sommeliers,
Right.
and they're the people that certify becoming a Master
Right.
Sommelier or Master
They
Wine.
dominated it. Like, if you didn't have those certifications, then you didn't really exist. Nobody would hire you, all these kinds of things. And so that was what they drilled into us.
But you moved in that direction.
Of course, because I'm a black woman in a space. I don't see any other people that look like me. I don't feel like I belong here. feel like I'm fighting through every day to get myself in this space. And so on some level, I had to follow the rules. And I did. I tried to take the trajectory that I thought would make me the most successful so that I could do my own thing.
Trajectory is that CMS path.
Yeah, 100%.
This is the path to get to
100%.
where people get to.
Right. Back
Whether
then,
it was
that
right
was
or
it.
wrong for you or in reality,
didn't matter.
that was the path.
It didn't matter. And so I did what I thought would make it easier for me. It was already difficult, right? And so you get into a space where you're just trying to make your life as easy as possible, and you're in this unknown abyss. And I did what I could. I studied my ass off. When I moved to Miami, I didn't even go out.
You have
Right.
to study your ass off.
I used to go to work as a cocktail server. I used to tuck my cards into my bra. I was studying every second that I could. I was terrified.
Like Loire Valley.
No, if I didn't have a customer, I was like, okay, I'm studying. I went home, I studied. I still have pictures of books laid across my floor. I would study all night. I would take a nap. I would get up. And the thing is, I was already ready for CMS just through taking those advanced classes through this wine school of Philadelphia. But in your head, you don't know that, right? You're thinking this is this whole other thing. And then I was much more advanced when I took that test. I was advanced level, because I read the Wine Bible twice.
Is that a good source for getting up to speed?
I thought it was, and it's this thick. It's as thick as it's incredibly thick. Twice I read it. I was very determined, and at the time I also wanted to be the first black woman Master Som.
So let's talk about that and the Court of Master Sommeliers.
Right.
When we look today at the court, and we're going to go backwards, it's not an organization that's done the best things the right way.
Right.
But you were responsible for bringing certain things to light.
I was.
There are some very specific experiences, and I'm not sure you want to talk about them or not, but you got in there, you did it, and then you realized, wait a second, and then you got out of there.
Yeah.
And you did a video. Do you want to talk about, walk me through it?
I mean, we can talk about it. So in 2011, when I went to take my CMS test, first level, it was in New York. So CMS made it very clear that you had to pay for everything. There's nothing sponsored. So I had to buy my plane ticket to New York. I had to get my hotel. I had to pay for the test, all these things.
Expensive.
So I get
Plus
into
all the study materials.
100%,
Wine is on your own,
everything.
right? Right.
So I get there, and I am as nervous as I can be.
Are you nervous because you're nervous, or are you nervous because you're like a black woman that is
All of
kind of
it.
younger?
I'm nervous because, again, I hadn't seen anybody, but also I didn't know what I was walking into, right? And
Literally.
so when I got in there, I'm like, okay, it's a 2-day course. So I think that's important to note, that it is a 2-day course. So day one, we're going through these things, and they're going through the tests and, reviewing things, blah, blah. And again, I was very engaged in this space. So
you bought in.
I had questions. I wanted to make sure I was going to pass this test. I wanted to be at the top of my class. I was super ambitious. I'm still ambitious, but, and this, I was just like, yes. And then there were 4 instructors, 2 women and 2 men. And basically, long story short, they made it very clear that you were not allowed to talk unless you called them master. And so when I heard them say it the first time, I was like, it's no way. I was like, it's no way they're going to say this to me.
And no awareness, no sensitivity of the room, the people, the situation.
Zero.
This is the way it is.
They were so full of themselves. It was just about them. And
well,
you're
they
lucky
are,
to be
and that's
here.
their downfall.
Right, and that's
but
the thing.
So that rings a bad note with you.
Right, because they said it, and I was like, it's no way they're going to. I really felt like I was an exception. I was like, I know they know I'm here. I know they see me. I know you're not finna sit here and tell me.
You think?
And so I raised my hand because I really had a question. And, she kind of just rejected me. It was like, you need to call me master. And I was like...
So wait, you took exception and said, listen, I don't think it's appropriate. And they said, no, you have to...
No, I didn't even say that. I just raised my hand to ask a question.
And you didn't
they were
say
like, you can't ask your question until you call me master. And I was like...
What's the immediate reaction?
I literally, everything inside me fell apart.
Do you hang in there or do you walk out?
Oh, I stayed. I passed my test with flying colors. I cried the entire night because it's a 2-day test. Right when I said that?
So you were back the next day?
Yeah. I had to take my test the next day. So through all of that, I had to come back, take my test, and but I was devastated.
So a couple of things. You walk out of there obviously feeling like this is pretty...
This is done. I knew I was done. In that moment, I was done.
This is not the organization for me. You did this incredibly eloquent, well-viewed video on your reaction. Yeah. How soon after that experience
that was like 9 years, right? Yeah, it was 2020.
Was the video 9 years later?
Yeah, I never said a word. At first, I was embarrassed. I was like, if anybody finds out about this.
So 2 things. Why did you decide to do the video at that time? And just tell everybody a little about, what you were talking about.
So I did the video 2020 because CMS decided to tag me in something and say that they were in partnership with me, which if all the people in the world...
So let's stop for a second. CMS went through some really bad stuff.
Yeah.
Sexual harassment,
that was
sexism, racism, George Floyd, but they've had problems and all that. But when you did the video, you decided to finally...
Yeah, because I was fed up. I was like, they were placating. They didn't actually do the work of anti-racism or actually trying to organize. They never even reached out to me. They just used my name in a statement to the community saying that they were going to do something, and it pissed me off.
You stumble on it on the social media thing?
No, it wasn't even that.
You go batshit when you see it?
My friends started tagging me and sending me texts like, congratulations, or you have this partnership with CMS. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't even deal with CMS. And I was like, are you guys serious right now? Like, you crossed the line. Like, I had been silent. I never really told anybody.
9
years. I never said a word. And then it was like the universe was like, it's time. Because of all the organizations in the world that you could have, they tagged. And I was like, this is unacceptable.
So, meantime, in the end, you're a stronger person. I don't mean stronger from this, but your conviction was always there. Yeah. They weren't right. They got caught for not being right. And, by trying to associate you, was not the right thing. So let's talk about the things you're doing, but I need to kind of look back, to this incident. You started the Hughes Society.
Yeah.
When and why?
I started the Hughes Society in 2017 when I was moving out of Miami. I just felt like
being in Miami helped you formulate that I want to start this organization?
Being in Miami helped me realize that wine was not going to reach black people or black culture in its current state. And I needed to change the state in order to bring the benefits of having a working wine knowledge to my community. So I started doing everything through our lens. Everything. Events, fashion, music, everything. And the wine was just there. And it just became a natural accompaniment, but it wasn't.
So you used everything, culture, events, fashion, and wine to tie everything together and expose it to everybody.
Yeah, and it was brilliant. It was real. It
Now,
showed.
when you started Hue, was it regional? Was it like in your backyard, or were
Yeah,
you able to
100% was in
travel
my house.
and do stuff?
Yeah, I was doing stuff. A little while after I started, I did Essence Festival, which is the largest black music festival in the country. I started doing wine events there, which told me something because there were no wine events there. So
Right.
I was the one who brought wine events to the thing. But that's what I mean. Like, it just lacked in black culture. And I was like, this is such an amazing concept, like experience, like wine in general, right? And it's also incredibly empowering. Like, wine is a tool when you know how to use it. And so I was very much driven to make sure that we had access and resources to this tool as much as possible.
So you look at 2017, 2022, 5 years later, throw in some COVID interruptions. Are you where you want to be because of COVID? Are you able to ramp up where you want to go?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, aren't you doing, what's the event you're doing?
I'm on top of the world. I love it. I love it here. Like, I do. I feel like I've created a space where people can come and feel safe and seen and heard and loved authentically as they are. And I think that's the most important thing in the world. There's nothing more important than being able to be yourself and feel love for being yourself.
So I'm listening to this podcast, and I'm like, I got to get in touch with these guys, or I got to be part of this. We'll mention it later, but if people want to know more about the Hue Society, where do they go?
So, thehuesociety.com. We have an amazing social media presence at the Hue Society. Mine is a Sipping Socialite.
Right.
I don't know if you want to go on there.
No,
It's
we'll
hilarious.
get to that. That's a personal thing,
Yeah.
but I think people want to know the person behind, the organizations. Now, so Hue Society is as strong as ever,
Yeah.
You're doing...
We're going international this year.
Okay.
We're opening a chapter in South Africa. We'll be opening a chapter in London. Hopefully, at the end of this year, more towards next year, we'll be doing Ghana.
Wow.
And we're just that network. Just being able to see yourself across the globe is powerful. It's incredible.
Well, I think when you got into this, you were hoping that, it would expand everywhere. Now, is it fair to say the Roots Fund was a natural progression or next step from Hue Society?
Yeah, definitely.
Talk to me about that and what they do.
So when the whole CMS thing was going down, I don't know if a lot of people know this, how Roots Fund got started. When the whole CMS thing was going down, Carlton McCoy, he's a master psalmist, a black
Tell that
master
story,
psalmist.
because he's now an ally, but that's not the
Right.
way it started.
And so
Carlton's one of the good guys,
he made
right?
a post, and the post was triggering to a lot of people. So I reached out to him. I said, we need to have a conversation.
What was the post, or what was the gist of the post?
It was basically him saying that it's easy because people started quitting CMS, right? The Master Psalm started turning in
They
their
started
face.
saying, I'm
And
turning
he
my badge in
said,
because I don't want to be
it's
part of
easy
it.
for you guys to do this because basically you don't have to hold the door open for anybody else. So all you have to think about is yourself. You don't have to. He said, me and Carlton come from a lot of the same places, inner cities. I'm from North Philadelphia. He's from D.C. There's a whole thing. And so he knew, I understood what he was saying, but I wanted him to know how many people he hurt in saying that without acknowledging the other side of what it feels like to be a victim of CMS's racism and sexism and all the rest of that stuff.
So how do you go about it? You reach out to him directly and say...
100%. And so we got on
And
the Zoom,
is
we
he
have a
tone
conversation.
deaf, or he starts hearing what you're
he
saying?
listened, and the next day he made a post that corrected himself.
He did.
But from that conversation, we realized we both had the same things. We're both really powerful people in this industry. What can we do to combine these powers and make sure everybody gets to receive the benefits that we are receiving, right? From working, because tokenism is a very strong thing. And neither of us
So define
believe in it.
tokenism in this context for us.
In this context, tokenism is, I have a black person that is working at my restaurant. I have a black person that's doing this and the other. But the thing about all of this racial diversity and whatever is, yes, you may have black people working there, but you don't want all of them. You want to cherry pick your way through their blackness. You want a representation of a black person.
That's
you don't
tokenism.
actually want
Right.
the black person that you're saying that, you're checking this box off for. You want certain parts of them to be able to represent your establishment. And so we were like, we're going to create this organization and we're going to let everybody decide what they want to do in the wine industry, which we never had those opportunities.
Right.
When we came in, we felt like we either had to be a som or a winemaker. That was it. We said, there's so many other things to do. We're going to fund all of it. We are going to flood the wine industry with black and brown and indigenous people. And that's 100% what we did. And we have been so successful with the Roots Fund.
So that's what the Roots Fund is.
100%.
And Carlton and who is
and
it?
Akimi
are
Akimi's
now,
executive
you
director.
and the two of them are instrumental,
100%.
parts of that. And Carlton initially sort of didn't sound right when he threw it out, and then you won him over.
It was a
and now
conversation.
it's the three of you, moving this
we're
marble
family.
and all of that. So let's talk about Roots Fund. If you want to get in contact with them.
Yeah, we're at the Roots Fund on social media and also www.therootsfund.org. We're actually having our first gala to raise money. We send people to Burgundy.
Where
It's at Chelsea Piers in New York, April 27th.
So will you remind? I'll stay in touch, but I'll run promos on the show.
But the Roots Fund is different because we break barriers on a high level, right? We're the first people to send people to Burgundy, black people to Burgundy to study and to get degrees. So we have someone there. She's getting a degree right now. This year we're doing Champagne. Like, we go through these different things, and it's not a joke. Like, we're very serious about dismantling these barriers. So the Roots Fund is doing incredible work.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that. And then the Council of Resources group. It's like your energy is unbelievable. It's like there's a need for this, let's do that. There's a need for this, let's do that.
That's me in a nutshell. So the Council of Resources is that, quote unquote, the board for the Hue Society, right? And so you have Femi, who was just here on your show. The most elite, quote unquote, people in the wine industry. We have everything from retail shops, the best retail shops in the country, to master somms on this board. And the idea is redistribution of power, which the wine industry is not used to. The wine industry loves to stronghold and hoard power. What we do, we have a lot of power within ourselves, within individually and collectively. We redistribute it all over. Any resource you need, anytime we can put you in place, anytime we can mentor, any kind of thing that you need as a community, we redistribute power. That's 100% what the Council of Resources is for.
So through mentorship, through having all these people available.
Right, through tastings, through education. Everything, because everybody has a different skill.
Right. So if people want information on Council for Resources Group, is there a separate way to get into that?
No, it's all through Hue Society.
It's also Hue Society is really the platform.
Hue Society was founded to be an umbrella organization for all of these other organizations, right? And so we just needed a place where we could all meet to feel like home. And so there are tons of organizations that are under it.
So we'll post that too. We want people to know about that. I've been doing shows the last 2 years during the pandemic. And I've talked to everybody, restaurant owners, wine people, distributors, and all of that. And I get this sense from talking to everyone that because of the pandemic and during the pandemic, it brought a lot of attention to this lack of diversity, lack of inclusion, lack of equity in the industry.
Yep.
Do you agree with me that, like, the pandemic just kind of blew everything up? Like, this is effed up?
I think it's twofold.
And when you talk about equity, diversity, now we're talking about people of color, all that.
Disabilities, the
everything.
whole nine. But the thing is, I feel like it blew things up, but it made it popular. It popularized it.
In a good way.
In a good way.
Or what? No, help me with that.
Where are those people now?
So I need your take on that. So where are they now?
Where are they now? It was very easy to jump the bandwagon because it was popular to support, disenfranchised businesses and underrepresented
so jump
communities.
on the bandwagon.
Where is that now? Because
post.
I feel like I'm back at the same place that I was in 2020.
That's my point.
Yeah,
So,
and everybody does. But what it did was it also revealed who was actually trying to move forward and who was trying to make a name for themselves with clout.
So we're not entirely happy.
No, we're
it's
not.
kinda
Absolutely
bullshit.
not. It was 100% bullshit.
Is there any positive or movement?
No, I think that it shed a light for a lot of people, right? So I don't take whiteness and blackness as the dichotomy of it. There's a lot of gray in there, right? You don't know what you don't know. And so you can't look at a white person and say, you did this, and the other, when literally you're living your life and you don't have to know that, right? You don't know what's happening if you don't see it. And the media is very good at that. Television is very good at that. And so the obligation, it becomes your responsibility when you do. And I feel like a lot of people were enlightened in 2020, and they're right back to themselves in 2022.
But can I throw something on top of that?
Yeah.
So you have an industry that was kind of on shaky ground, and then the pandemic exposes it and all of that. Then you have the summer of George Floyd, where things become even more specific, more racism, which goes back to the industry. The CMS, they mishandled that. They sort of stood by idly. I mean, obviously where we're at, that kind of came and went too, right? The
100%.
anti-racist and the awareness.
Because it was a badge of honor. I am anti-racist. Black Lives Matter. All in your profiles. But as soon as a black person pisses you off, it's out. Right? That's not anti-racism. That is, again, tokenism. You like this person. You don't actually like black people or disabled people or Jewish people. Right? As soon as somebody makes you mad from that group, you're right back to your center. And that's trash.
So that's a little, disturbing and unnerving, because I would hope that things, but they're not. I mean, is it that there was a moment and there was a discussion and now we're sort of back to the...
There's a huge difference between a moment and a movement.
Did things move a little, or you're...
There's a moment and there are movements.
That's it.
But you have to... What we learn is how to advocate for ourselves and how to play the game. Right? And so you hold people accountable. So either they're going to be accountable or they're not. But the fear of being publicly displayed as not being accountable is stronger than your actual fear of wanting to help or wanting to be altruistic. They're different.
Yeah, that's a tough thing for me to, digest. I agree.
This weekend, right? How many encounters did I have this weekend?
I think as you and I sit here, we may be up to like 6.
Right, like it's
some are silly, but some are real.
I do this rosé thing yesterday. I think this is a great example. I do this rosé masterclass with a friend of mine. Her name is Jane. She's a white woman, beautiful white woman.
Jane was on yesterday. Jane Lopes.
Jane's incredible.
Right, and she's good people too.
And we do this thing, and
So
Jane
wait,
and
let
I
me
are
set
really good
this up.
friends.
You were doing a Charleston Wine and Food event with Jane. The two
Right.
of you were brought in to do a rosé
Masterclass.
tasting masterclass.
Right.
Masterclass.
We do the class. After the class, I have a line of people just literally, oh my God, you speak so well. Oh my God, you knew this. You knew that. You knew that. And at the end, I was exhausted because I have to smile and grin through that shit. Jane, I turned to Jane and I said, how many people came up to you and told you how well you spoke? She was like, nobody. What are you talking about? Like, literally, she was oblivious. Like, what are you talking about?
So after everything we just talked about, it's a sad state of affairs that's how people, for people to have to come up to you and say, oh, you're so articulate and knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Why?
It's a shock. Where are you
Jane.
from? I say I'm from Philly. No, where are you actually from? Like, that is a microaggression.
That's
What do you
terrible.
mean? I just told you where I was from. Wait, where are you? What information are you looking for that's going to make me different than the people in your head, right? Like, it's bizarre and it's exhausting, and you kind of just like...
That saddens me so much, but it's sort of a contemporary state of where we're at. The world's no different, and that validates it.
100%.
And we have a long way to go.
Look at Ukraine, right? Look at what's happening in Ukraine. That's a really sad situation. And two things can be true at the same time. That can be an incredibly sad situation, and it sucks, and it should not be happening. But the racism and anti-blackness at the border is also very true, right? It never takes a day off.
thank God the news, not to the extent it should be, is covering it a little.
Right.
Like people are saying,
It's
hey, could you
disgusting.
believe this is going on? It's not the top of the news, but it's
you
being
know
discussed.
what's always disappointing? The surprise.
Right.
We've been telling you this for years. What are you surprised at? That's disappointing on multiple levels. Because why are you shocked?
I agree. So you've done an incredible job empowering people.
Thank you.
And I asked you before, and I don't think I could mention it enough, but if people, I'm positive they've been stimulated by this conversation, but if they want to react, they go to Hughes Society.
Yeah. So
Is
we
it
have
HughesSociety.com?
TheHughesSociety.com.
The Hughes Society.
The Hughes Society on Instagram. Yeah.
All right, so one last thing on a lighter note. You are definitely entrepreneurial. You are definitely styling all the time. You tell me about your jewelry thing quickly. Is that still a thing?
Yeah. I mean, it's called Statements by Habibi. And, it's my ethos, I guess, is just
Are those
empowerment.
earrings
They
yours?
are. Yeah, they're mine.
Those are pretty cool.
But so I always get this thing whenever I walk into a room. It's like, oh, and I don't mean this in like an arrogant way.
No,
but like,
I know exactly
more
where
like,
you're going.
Oh my God, I love your jewelry. Oh my God, I could never do that, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yes, you can. Do you want to do it? You absolutely can do it. And that's why, I started curating statement pieces because I want women to feel empowered. I want you to walk into a room and own it, and you don't have to say anything. But you should feel strong enough within yourself and confident enough within yourself to wear what you want to wear and not worry about who's going to be like, oh, you're too old to be wearing jewelry that big.
They're
or you
expressions
too,
and
this, and
tools of who you are, right?
Yes.
So you're like, I know this, I can do it.
But I'm
and
going to show
making
you,
it.
right? Like 100%. That's
So
all
if
what
people
I'm
want to know more about the jewelry, where do they go?
Statementsbyhabibi.com.
And .com. Okay. All right, Tahiirah, we got to wrap up. As I told you before we did this, we could probably sit here for 3 hours.
We could.
But hopefully we hit a few areas that are very important
No, this is great.
to you, and that people will get stimulated to get involved. So let me do a quick wrap up. Thank you for listening to Heritage Radio Network's live coverage of Charleston Wine and Food Festival. I'm Sam Ben Ruby from the Grape Nation. Special thanks to Hickory Nut Gap for making our coverage possible. We're grateful to the festival for having Heritage Radio Network back in the culinary village for the 6th year. I lost my place. You can listen to all our coverage on our podcast, Heritage Radio Network on Tour. Find it on heritageradionetwork.org or wherever you listen to podcasts. And I decided, Tahiirah, that before this podcast, that it was great for me to sit down with you.
Yeah.
But next week, Matt, we are running this podcast as the Grape Nation Podcast Wednesday. Okay? Because I want to expand it out into another audience. So once again, thanks to my guest, Tahiirah Habibi. You're listening to the Grape Nation and Heritage Radio at the Charleston Wine and Food Festival. Don't forget to vote for the Grape Nation at the Taste Awards, and I just want to remind you that one of the great wine events, La Paulée, is in New York, March 9th through the 12th. There'll be great wine lunches, dinners, a vertical tasting, the grand tasting, and a gala dinner. Go to lapaulée.com for more info. That's LAPAULEE.com. Thank you, and you've been listening to the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. The Grape Nation is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find us at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be part of the food world's most innovative community? Subscribe to the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join the HRN family by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. And thanks for listening.